Hey everyone, today I wanted to do a video updating you on the situation with my InForce APL. As some of you may have seen, and if you haven't, I'll link it over here on the side. But a while back, while I was doing some drills, my InForce APL came flying off of my Glock 19. Now a lot of people were asking exactly what was going on when this happened, and I can honestly say it was literally just as I drew the handgun out, I got my sights on target, and out of my periphery, or out of my peripheral vision, however you want to say it, I saw something kind of arc out of the way, and I couldn't tell exactly what it was. I figured since I was still able to shoot that it definitely wasn't my mag, but I wanted to finish the drill before getting distracted or anything like that. And then, after my drill, I realized that my InForce APL had come flying off. And what had happened, and I'll roll in some pictures on the side here, but basically there was a crack all along this side where this bracket actually meets the rail on the Glock, and because of that it had opened up and come flying off. Now if you saw my original review on these, which again I'll link on the side, I said that the biggest downside of these was their durability. The fact that there really isn't much metal in these, especially as far as the attachment system goes, that's a huge liability as far as the durability of these lights. Even if you go to something like a TLR1 from Streamlight, pretty much all of the components that attach it are metal, or at least a lot of them. And then obviously with something like the Surefire XC1, there's a lot of metal here. So in my opinion, and as I said in the other video, these are great for EDC use, but I really don't think they can stand up to a duty style use, and that was definitely proven by the failure that I had. So let's talk about exactly what happened when I contacted InForce. So I sent them an email, and when I looked at their customer service page, I noticed that they say something like, allow for 2 to 3 days for someone to get back to you. I was honestly amazed, because after I sent the email, literally 2 minutes after I sent the email, I had a response back from customer service. They were very nice, very polite. I also sent pictures along with it, so they didn't have to ask for pictures or anything like that. They basically told me give them my information. They gave me a reference number and told me exactly where to send it, and I was able to do that. So I had to pay for shipping myself. I had to pay to ship it all the way to Rhode Island, which for FedEx from Oregon, obviously on the other side of the country, was about $10, so not too terrible. I sent this out on February 15th. It arrived February 18th, so it took 3 days to get across country. From that point, they had it for a total of 4 days, which, in their defense, 2 of those days were weekends, so it arrived, let's see, on a Thursday, and then it was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then they shipped it out Tuesday. So their customer service said their turnaround is about 24 hours. So in my experience, it was a little bit more than that, but I'm sure, again, the fact that there was a weekend in there probably got things fumbled up a little bit. But then from there, like I said, they sent it that Tuesday, which was the 23rd. And then it actually arrived on March 1st. And just for reference, in case you're watching this sometime in the future, this year's actually a leap year, so there's an extra day in there for February. So it actually took 8 days for this thing to get back to me. So it took longer for it to ship back to me than it did for me to ship it to them and the time that they had it. So you can judge whether or not that's an acceptable amount of time to you, but that is just over 2 weeks from the day that this left Oregon to the day that this arrived back at my door. Not the worst I've ever heard, but also not the best I've ever heard. So take that for what you will. Now, when I got it back, they include a little kind of customer service sheet, or like a fix sheet, I guess, for the repairs that they made. It's a very generic letter. There's really no signatures or names or anything on this. And to me, this was kind of enlightening as far as what kind of common issues they have. I feel like the fact that they have tallies in here would mean that these are their most common issues that they experience. So just to run through these real quick: tail cap switch was defective, whatever. However it's defective, light was draining the batteries, screw clamp came off, so that's kind of similar to screw clamp is what I had an issue with. I didn't have it come all the way off. Paddle switch defective again, switch defective again, and then whatever, same color, discontinued, swapped with FDE. And then mine was just replaced with new rail. So clearly there's a lot of issues apparently with the paddle switch being defective, or tail cap switch being defective on whatever you have, the lights being defective. I was honestly surprised that replace new with new rail isn't on here, considering I know for a fact I'm not the only person that's had an issue with this. For example, a lot of you know who the Haas USMC is, and if you don't, if you follow my channel and you don't follow the Haas USMC, you're wrong, and you should do that, so I'll put a link to his channel below. But he has a lot of InForce products as well, and when I was with him the other day, he showed me his, and basically this entire side cracked off this way. Now, he was putting his through a lot more strenuous use than I was. It was while he was going through some, I think it was the contractor classes at Tactical Response, so putting it through some pretty heavy abuse, and it snapped when he dropped it on the ground. So his fix, or his breakage, was a lot more reasonable than mine, I think, considering, like I said, it literally came out as I drew it out. So again, they just replaced this entire side of the clamp right here, and also it looks like they replaced the screw itself. I'll try to get you some close-up views of this, but there's no wear marks on the inside of there, and I know for a fact on mine, you know, there were some scratches just from using a screwdriver. Not a huge deal to me, but I noticed that they swapped that out too, so I guess that's kind of cool. And then just for reference also, I took the battery out before shipping it to them, and it came back without a battery. So again, take that for what you will. If they don't want to put a battery in it, that's no big deal. Batteries are not cheap. But one thing I kind of want to go back to is this kind of discrepancy sheet. Now, my experience in the military, and for those of you who don't know, in the military I was in the Air Force, and when I was a crew chief on F-15s, so a lot of work with tools, basically fixing jets, getting them ready to fly again. So when I was in the military, again working on aircraft, we used what we called German torque, which is Gudentite. We were supposed to have specific torque values that we'd use on pretty much everything. I can say honestly, for me, I may or may not have never used those torque values unless QA was watching me, and I just would go by Gudentite. Again, what we affectionately referred to as German torque. And if you don't get the joke there, I apologize. So very likely what the issue was over torquing, because I do like to tighten things down as hard as I can, which I don't think would be an issue if this part right here was metal, or if this part over here was metal, or if really any of the attachment system was metal. I don't think that would be an issue. However, because they decided to use this polymer, or whatever exact material this is, that did become an issue. I'm assuming put unnecessary strain on this, and that's what led it to break. So just throwing that piece of information out there. Over torquing may have been an issue. However, I don't think that should be an issue. I think construction materials should be better than that. However, again, I want to go back to this fact, which is they have basically a pre-made sheet of common issues. Now, I don't think that you would have a pre-filled out sheet of issues unless you had a high volume of issues coming in. Now, I could be mistaken. This is really one of the first times that I've dealt with having to ship an item back to the manufacturer. Previous to this, I've had experience with Magpul, and they literally just sent out a new part and gave me a box with return shipping to send the old part back to them. So much simpler process, much faster process also. So this kind of surprised me, the fact that they apparently have such a high volume of issues that they have something pre-filled out so that they don't even have to write down what happened. They can just check a box and, you know, continue on with fixing however many others they have go back. So again, interesting food for thought. I didn't expect to see something like this. I figured there'd be some place to write what they did. I just didn't think that they'd have such a high volume that they'd have it pre-filled out. Again, as a former maintainer, I know what it's like to get really tired of filling in discrepancies and fixes all the time, so I can get wanting a pre-filled out thing. But again, we also had a high volume of issues on F-15s, so, you know, again, take that for what you will. I was surprised by it and kind of disappointed by it, because again, that means they have a high volume of issues with their lights. Again, I want to roll in For those of you who haven't seen, I also have a InForce WML, which cracked right here, right behind where this little screw cap comes on. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see inside there, but you know, that crack goes on in there. So clearly there's an issue with the material, whatever it is that they're using, cracking, breaking, whatever else. Again, the Haas USMC also had a WML that cracked in the exact same way. So again, I like InForce products. I honestly think InForce lights have some of the best ergonomics, some of the best form factors that I've seen on any sort of weapon mounted light. However, I think that the materials that they're using are frankly substandard, and it's really disappointing that a light this well designed is being built out of such cheap materials that they're breaking constantly. Now, for those of you who do follow the Haas USMC, you know he's kind of on a tactical road trip right now, going to a bunch of different training schools, doing a bunch of stuff, visiting a bunch of companies. I've talked to him, kept him up to date on what's been going on with my stuff, and he said that when he gets back to Oregon, him and I will make a video kind of talking about InForce products together. So be looking forward to that. If I can remember when that does come out, I'll put a link to that over here as well. Because again, him and I have both been very disappointed with our InForce products. We both love the idea and the design behind these. We're just really disappointed with the execution and the actual failure of these materials. Now, I'll be honest with you, I plan on reintegrating this back into my EDC. I still think that this is a very good light. I love the form factor of it. I love the ergonomics of it. However, I also do plan on buying a Surefire XC1 to eventually replace this, because again, the XC1 has metal components and I don't have to worry about that flying off just drawing it out of my holster. So when that happens, you know, obviously I'll keep you guys in the loop and you know, be doing a review on that XC1. I have a little bit of trigger time with them, and I can say that I like them so far. They have some weird quirks, but not any that affect my usage of them. So again, I do plan on replacing this InForce light with the Surefire light, just because I'm really disappointed with the quality of the materials in these InForce products. So, you know, really that's about it. That's my experience so far with InForce customer service. Again, they were very kind, very polite. Their response was lightning fast, way faster than I expected. It took me longer to respond to them than it took them to respond to me. So again, really impressive there. But again, the products themselves just leave a lot to be desired, which is really a shame because, like I said, I think they're the best design lights on the market currently. If you guys have similar experience returning products with InForce or InForce products breaking, please throw those in the comments below. I really think it's useful to get as many different points of view and experiences as possible, so please share those. If you're interested in keeping up with my content, feel free to hit that subscribe button below. You know, give this video a thumbs up if you feel like it earned it. Also, I'll put a link to my blog down below where I'll be doing more in-depth write-ups on these specific products themselves. And since YouTube is no longer allowing us to link to manufacturers, you can probably find those in my blog as opposed to directly linked from YouTube. So look for those there. But as always, I hope you were able to get something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.